bonjour, welcome one and all, great and small, distinguished guests and people in vests, to this first ever final of the first ever Famelab Mauritius. And I'd like to start by giving a special welcome to our guest of honour, the Minister of Education and Human Resources, Tertiary Education and Scientific Research, the Honourable Mrs. Leela Devi Dukan. But you're all also equally welcome. So I'm Quentin Cooper, tweeting as @QWERTY, the single best Twitter handle in existence. And I'm thrilled to have been invited here today to host this as part of a little-known clause in the Lomé Convention. That's a joke for those who know their conventions, right? I've been part of Famelab from way back when the Fame part was just being slightly better known and the lab was just a test tube. Since it began at the Cheltenham Science Festival in the UK back in 2005, I've been lucky enough to have the role of the host of the UK and international finals. And so I've sort of felt like, if not a proud parent, then at least a very proud uncle, as I've watched this go from being a British-only event to spread across Europe and now across every continent on the planet, barring Antarctica. And believe me, we are working on the Antarctic Famelab. I'm working on that as well. Yeah, major science organizations like NASA and CERN have had their own versions of this, and this year it's going to be our biggest ever, with 31 countries taking part. It's worth saying that the Football World Cup took 36 years to get to that size. We've done it in only 12. And also it's worth saying many Famelabbers, many people who've taken part, not just the winners, but the participants have gone on to become hugely well known in their countries, presenters of science programs, celebrities, leading figures in research. So Mauritius taking part in this can only be good for the people of Mauritius and for the science of Mauritius. Because one of those 31 finalists at Cheltenham will be chosen right here, right now. Well, in the next 2 hours or so. The all-expenses-paid trip they'll get to Cheltenham to take part in that final in just over 2 weeks' time is a key part of the prize, but they'll also get 25,000 rupees, which is not to be sneezed at. So that just leaves one small matter that some of you may be slightly Mauritius suspicious about, which is just what the heck is Famelab and what are you in for over the next 2 hours? Because you've not had a Mauritian competition before, who here has come along really not very sure what they're in store for? Can I get the lights up for a second? Only 2 of you? Everybody else knows exactly what's going on? Well, if the rest of you can just explain to these 2, that'll save me a job. Now, come on, really, who doesn't really know what Famelab is? Yeah, exactly, I thought there's a few more. Okay, it's a deceptively simple setup. There are 11 finalists. Each is here to give us 3 minutes maximum of fascinating, stimulating, elevating insights about science, technology, and/or engineering. There are no PowerPoint or any other kind of electronic help allowed, no props except what they carry on stage themselves, and they also have to handle a couple of minutes of questions from our judges, who we'll get to in a minute. The goal is to convey something of the magnificence and significance of science, of the wow and the how, and to entertain as much to explain. And if by any chance they go over their 3 minutes, they'll hear this. That is Nando, our chicken, who is also doubling as our timer. Can't think where the name comes from. And that pretty much is it. Anything else should be clear as we go along, like, for instance, who the judges are. They're the ones who have to dash hopes, crush dreams, and decide on our Famelabbers' fate. So let me introduce them. And first, and I should say, having hosted a lot of Famelabs, this really is a first for Famelab. Although we've had the Spanish King and Queen giving out awards at Famelab Spain, we've had a special presidential welcome for the winners and participants in Famelab Egypt. We've had all sorts of top politicians and scientists handing over the prizes. Never before have we had a president as one of our judges. And not just any president. It's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Her Excellency, the President of the Republic of Mauritius, Dr. Amina Gurib Fakim. It's always tricky when the journey to the stage is longer than the applause lasts. So, and whilst she's coming, I should also say, I suspect most of you are aware of this, but worth saying that prior to her current job, the President was Professor of Organic Chemistry at the University of Mauritius and Director of Research and Innovation at CIDP, which is the largest contract research organisation in this part of the world. So you you do have a kind of strong and sound scientific reasons for being here. It's not just she's the president, so she gets to be on any panel she wants. So I should also point out that even though she is the president and she is the chair of our judges, she doesn't get any more votes than the other two judges, so let me introduce those as well. They are from the British Antarctic Survey, marine biologist Dr. Simon Morley, and from our sponsors, Investment Managers Fundsmith, their CEO, Terry Smith, a top UK fund manager, only recently And Terry, I should say as well, is also regularly on the panel for the Financial Times Awards, so he may be assessing our Famelabers for their marketability as well as their fascination. Right, so Amina, I am told it's not a breach of diplomatic protocol to call you that, so that's very kind of you. It's great that you're here. It's great that you didn't just want to be in the audience, but why did you want to get so involved with Famelab?
Why it's important to be involved with Famelab? You know, scientists, we're very good at speaking to each other. We're very good at convincing each other, but we very often fail to convince those who are going to fund us. And we're also not very good at convincing our constituency, who are, of course, the people using the science. So I thought that will be, in fact, this was something we discussed last year when we met in the British Council in Cape Town, that we need to actually bring in the science communication among our scientists, among our teachers, among everybody who feel there's a need to communicate on science.
And no slight concern that it's tough enough for these young science communicators or scientists to talk in front of an audience, then knowing the president in the audience, then knowing the president's one of the judges, you're not worried you're actually in trying to help them, putting a little bit of extra pressure on them?
No, but you just called me Amina, so I'm a scientist.
Yeah. And Simon Morley, it's worth saying to you, first question people are going to say is, hang on, British Antarctic Survey, what the heck are you doing in Mauritius? Aren't you a long way from home?
You could say that, but of course I'm a marine biologist and this beautiful island is surrounded by the ocean, and so the problems we see with animals in the oceans in the Antarctic are very comparable to problems here.
And I suppose if you do work for the British Antarctic Survey, any opportunity to work somewhere warm and tropical like here is to be seized with open arms.
Absolutely, although I'm not really very adapted to wear a suit in the tropics, I have to say.
And getting to the serious side of things, now each finalist has 3 minutes. What will you be looking for? What are you principally trying to judge them for?
So we have 3 criteria, the 3 C's, so we're looking for content. So have they got the message across that allows us to understand their science point? And clarity. Can they get that message across clearly, concisely, and really then the charisma? This is the X factor, the wow factor. Do they really engage us? So we'll go away from here buzzing about science, buzzing about their question, and wanting to look up more and learn all about it.
Brilliant. And Terry, you're the non-scientist on the panel, and obviously Famelab isn't intended exactly as the president said. It's not about, sorry, Amina said, sorry, I'll get the hang of this. It's not about scientists talking to scientists, it's about scientists talking to everybody. So in some ways, you're the most qualified person to be a judge here because you're the non-scientist.
I agree.
So what kind of...
I would agree whatever you said in the build-up to
And
that.
when you get those 2 minutes... Now, they've all done well to get this far, so we all know they're good, but it's these 2 minutes of questions from you that's probably going to make the difference. What sort of things will you be trying to tease out from them?
It's really whether or not they can explain something. You know, one of the phrases about, I'm addicted to many old sayings. One of the ones I like is if you can't explain it to a 7-year-old, it's because you don't understand it yourself. Can they pass that test? Since I can easily do an impersonation of a 7-year-old.
Yes, it's like the old Groucho Marx when he says, even a 7-year-old can understand it. Somebody get me a 7-year-old. So this is fine. But Amina, one more thing to say to you is the first time I met you, we were at the finals of Famelab in South Africa, which I was hosting, and your mobile phone went off during that, despite all the things I'd said. I guess being a president, you have to kind of keep your mobile phone on in case of... But if there is a national emergency in the next 2 hours, can we try and make it a quiet one, please?
I haven't got it on me.
And that goes for everybody else as well. By the way, if possible, can we have our mobile phones on silent for the duration? By all means, keep them on in case you want to take photos or whatever, but have them on silent. And although there is some humour here, they do have a very tough job to do, our judges, so can we give them another round of applause, please? Right, now, one more judge to introduce, and that is you. You, sir, there. No, actually, all of you. There is an audience vote winner prize as well, and clearly you are the audience, so you get to vote on it. So our 3 judges are going to decide on the 2 runners-up and our Famelab champion will get to go to Cheltenham, but you get to decide on the audience vote winner. It's important as well because they'll receive, not only will they receive 10,000 rupees, They will also receive the certain smug knowledge that they are the true people's champion. It doesn't matter what these three think. So, so everyone should have been handed a voting card as you entered. Once you've seen all 11 Famelabers, swiftly, keyword, swiftly, decide who you think was best, mark the card accordingly, and hand it in. I'll give you a nudge when it comes time to vote, but you've met the judges, you know the rules, except those of you who've just arrived, you know your job, so let the games begin. But please bear in mind that however incisive and decisive our judges are, they're going to be swayed by you, the audience, and your reactions, your applause, your whoops, your cheers. So are you ready to make some noise? Yes! Good. Should we do that once more? Are you ready to make some noise? That's better, Mauritius. Thank you. Now, the order our finalists are going has been completely randomly generated. I should say some of the finalists have told me a lot about themselves. Some of them have told me a little. But it doesn't really matter what they've done in their past or what they plan to do in the future. For now, what counts is the 3 minutes of time and the 2 minutes with the judges while they're doing Famelab. And the first person to round Sanjay Matadine. Now, Sanjay is a in economics, international trade and business strategy at the Mauritius campus of Middlesex University. His particular interest is in how information technology can make our lives better individually and collectively. Now, for all his high-tech skills and IT expertise, Sanjay says what he really loves studying are ancient civilizations, and that his dream job would be to be an anthropologist or to work in a museum. Perhaps Famelab can help him do that, perhaps not. But he's got 1 foot in the ancient, he's got 1 foot in the modern, so put both for our first Famelab finalist, Sanjay Matadine.
We all do it every night, yet we talk so less about it. I'm talking about sleep. Sleep, such a fascinating concept, but so complex as well. How does sleep work? Well, first, when we are awake, our brain releases a hormone called adenosine. Adenosine is a hormone which keeps our body tired and sleepy. That's why many of us like to drink coffee, because coffee, when you drink it, there's a compound called caffeine, which stops the adenosine from working. So, next time, be careful with your coffee. You may not end up getting sleep. Second, when our internal clock reacts to light and darkness, when it is dark enough, our brain sends yet another signal called melatonin. Melatonin signals our brain that now it's ready for the body to go to sleep. But unfortunately, blue light from our mobile phones, from our computer screen, and our television screen hampers this process. Now understand why every night when I'm on my bed with Facebook, I don't sleep. Is it the case for you? Yes. But wait a minute. Why our brain is so interested in making us sleep? Well, many research have now shown, are available, that sleep is important. Mainly because of the effect, or positive effect of sleep on our body, especially in terms of sleep duration, sleep quality, and sleep deprivation. First, one of the main functions is sleep clears metabolic waste from our brain. Metabolic waste are, for example, carbon dioxide, which are accumulated in our brain, and these need to be released. Now, when we sleep, these carbon dioxides are released twice faster than when we are awake. Well, metabolic waste is associated with mental disorders like Alzheimer's. So if you sleep better, then you know that the risk of Alzheimer's is lower. Second, sleep is associated with memory and learning. When we sleep, our brain pulls together memory of what has happened during the day, knowledge that has happened during the day, and put them together. And our brain decides which part of that knowledge is important and which part it needs to discard. So memory consolidation, very important for our school children. And third of all, and most importantly, sleep has an important role in hormonal balance. Studies in US and UK have shown that sleep deprivation can lead to problems of obesity and diabetes. So if you're like me, you want to lose some weight, then better sleep a bit more. Ladies and gentlemen, we do it every night. Sleep is free. Are you sleeping enough? Are you having quite a sleep? If not, perhaps better sleep a bit more. Thank you.
So why do we dream?
Sorry?
Why do we dream?
Well, I've not talked about it, but when you sleep, you have different cycles of sleep. First, you have the REM, rapid eye movement, and then you have the deep sleep. Now, the rapid eye movement is when you just go to sleep. The first cycle is REM. And this one, it's trying to make you feel what has happened during the day. And this is where you dream. Because it, as I've told you, you have this knowledge that you have acquired during the day, and the brain is processing what has happened and decide which part it will keep and which part it will just discard. And sometimes also, when you dream, it's your brain helping you and sleep helping you to decide what will you do if tomorrow there's a tsunami in your country. Because you already dream about it, and you have already have some kind of response. So when it happens in real life, you have already been prepared. Thank you.
So we all live these amazingly busy lives. We're rushing backwards and forward from the Antarctic to Mauritius. How do we calm ourselves down so that we can sleep? How do we arrange our lives so that we can sleep?
Very good question. So first of all, I think drink less coffee. Second, we should not take our mobile phones with us to the bed, okay? Because the blue light really stops us from sleeping. Then also it has been shown that doing some exercise and drinking water and being more in the environment can help you to sleep better. But sleep is very important, as you said. And this is a problem, you know. They found that in America, 1 of 8 people have problems of sleeping. And many research shows sleep deprivation is associated with problem of cancer, obesity, and diabetes. So we need to sleep a bit more. And that's my kind of message, that we need to sleep more.
Okay, that's where the alarm bell sounds. A wake-up call from Sanjay Matadine. And Simon, I mean, maybe you're an egomaniac, but we're not all spending our lives going from the Antarctic to Mauritius. I think that might just be you. So if you didn't figure it out before, it's pretty simple. You get 3 minutes from them to see they know their stuff, then 2 minutes from the judges to knock the stuffing out of them. That's how it goes, and for the whole thing. Second up, we have Farine Hossani. Farine is just 18, which at least rhymes. And ever since she was little, she's been asking all sorts of important, huge, searching questions about the nature of the cosmos, space, stars, and the whole Big Bang shebang. It's no surprise that what she calls her intense curiosity has led Farine to wanting to be an astrophysicist. First, though, comes the small matter of completing her BSc in physics, and just ahead of that, there's the even smaller matter of coming through the next 180 Famelab seconds unscathed. Stand by to go supernova for Farine Hossani.
One night, I was sitting in my garden, facing the night sky, with full of admiration. And then my brother came and told me, "What is it that you see in these stars? I mean, their only purpose is to light up the night sky, right? How pathetic." And then I told him, "Really? What if I tell you that we all have a level of connectivity with the stars? And this may actually change your point of view towards them." So it started somewhere in the universe. There were clouds of gas, hydrogen gas, dust, and a quite tug of war begins. The cloud of gas wants to dissipate like smoke in the air, but gravity pulls in, and gas pressure pushes out. So the cloud of gas starts to swirl around, and until it flattens into a circular disk. The region gets denser and denser, harder and harder, until finally at 18 million degrees, hydrogen atoms get excited. They start to fuse together with a burst of nuclear energy to form helium atoms. And the process does not stop here. So the helium atoms in turn form heavy elements and fuse together to form carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, which are the fundamental ingredients of life itself. And so the heavy elements also fuse together to form iron, which stays at the core of the stars. But at some stage, the stars get tired. Unlike me, who gets tired like every 3 hours. So a few billion years later, the stars starts to run out of fuel. And if it is massive enough, like bigger, 5 times bigger than our sun, it will start to collapse onto itself until it explodes into a supernova. And the supernova will expel all of its materials into space, forming other heavier elements. And and that's where planets come from. Other stars are getting born, and that's where we come from. I feel big because my atom came from the stars. This is why stars matter to all of us. And at the end of my explanation, my brother said, "Okay, I'll never judge the stars again. Thank you."
So, how can we improve our knowledge of what's happening in the
Okay,
star?
so what happens in the star, the scientists are developing a project towards that, which is known as nuclear fusion, a project known as ITER, where 35 countries are taking part, and this will actually take place in 2035, where they have seen the science behind the formation of the star, known as nuclear fusion. So they will use this concept to create a nuclear power plant. Okay? And this will occur with nuclear fusion, which will not release any nuclear radioactive waste, and it is clean energy, and it releases a tremendous amount of energy. Okay.
Do you ever use a planet or star app on a smartphone to look at to know what you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yes?
In fact, every night I have an application on my mobile phone where can I see, constellations, group of stars, and I can follow their.
Me too. I find it helps.
Yeah.
Okay, that looks to be all the questions the panel have. Judges, a reminder, you do have 2 minutes for questions, not a minute 15, not a minute 20, 2 minutes. So that was Fusion Without Confusion. There's another round of applause for the far-seeing star child, Farine Hassani. Now, our third person singular is one of 2 of our Famelab finalists to come from Kenya. Pambo Julius is currently studying engineering here at the École Centrale de Nantes, but he's already thinking beyond that, way beyond that. Pambo says he's an astute and passionate student who can not only inject new life and energy into science, but use that same energy to transform and change society. So where does he get all this energy from? I don't know, but Pambo does admit to eating live termites. You heard me right. Something he's quite likely to talk about in the next few minutes. So maybe that's what gives him the extra boost. I'm not sure, but brace yourself for an instant insect injection of high energy science from the very passionate Pambo Julius.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to a very empowering talk on a great topic that I'm sure you will probably love in the next couple of minutes. when anyone talks about termites and feeding in the same sentence, most of the time it takes a very big heart for someone to be able to listen to you up to the time you're done with it. But I'm here to tell you something slightly different about it. People have different mindset and people build different images when you talk about termites and feeding. For some people, it is a nightmare. But for some other people whom I'd really call the adventurous lot, they look at it and build images of them snacking and feeding on termites. By the way, I eat termites, live termites actually. They're very tasty, they taste good, they're yummy, they have a lot of fats as well. But let's talk about something more serious today. Termites, as a matter of fact, the people that actually consume termites have very little knowledge about how useful these small, tiny insects are to the bodies of living organisms, specifically human beings. In fact, the majority just eat it for the thrill of it. But termites are the most nutritious food substances that I think I've ever eaten up to today. They have a great deal of proteins, but also they have a great deal of minerals, notably zinc and iron, which are very important in developing and formation of our blood as human beings. But also they have a great amount and capacity of amino acids and also fatty acids as well. Approximately 100 grams of termites can be able to produce or to give you 14.2 grams of proteins. But as if that is not enough, the same amount, the same quantity of termites, 100 grams, can be able to provide you with approximately 613 calories of energy. Someone would ask, obviously, that what would you compare that to? I mean, like on my daily meal or something like that. That is equivalent to the amount of calories you'd get from 150 grams of consuming, for example, fish or chicken or, for example, beef as well. But that is not the point today. The point today is that the world today is starving. There is an increase in a greater need for provision of alternative food source all over the world, and specifically in the tropical African continent, the sub-Saharan part of Africa. Let's take a case study of a country, for example, like South Sudan. People are starving, people are dying, children are dying out of malnutrition, children are dying out of lack of basic food, nutrients, and alternative sources of food because they do not have the capacity and the ability to be able to afford these foods in the upmarkets, the supermarkets, and stores and everything. But termites actually provide a great alternative for this, and moving forward, not only the current generation, but also in the future generation, we have a great deal of food source which is very, very potential for the lives and the health of the current humanity and also the future humanity. So as you walk out this door today, I invite you, encourage you to drop by your next store, pick your packet of termites and have a bite of it. It's tasty, it's delicious, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, but just one small question.
Yep.
How will you help overcome this phobia of having a live termite in your mouth?
Well, if you develop the greatest desire to, obviously out of curiosity, to taste, as I first did when I was very young actually, but also the need to have, because today we have a lot of lifestyle diseases, which we get, from, consuming foods which are not very healthy in terms of how they're made. But I feel that the desire to be able to live a very healthy lifestyle should be the drive to consume them. But of course, also the thrill of eating a live thing, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be termite. It's also interesting. It's quite an adventure. That is what I thought of it when I first ate it.
Why are termites so nutritious?
Sorry?
Why are termites so nutritious? What makes them more nutritious than other food sources?
Absolutely. The interesting fact, the interesting reason why termites are very nutritious is the fact that out of 100 grams of termite, you are able, if you compare that, for example, to an equivalent 100 gram of, for example, fish, meat, or chicken, the amount of nutrients you're able to obtain from that is way above. And of course, apart from that also, if you consider, the termite has two body parts. There's the head and there's the thorax. But the head is actually way more nutritious than the thorax. It's still under development and study, as a matter of fact. There's a laboratory in George Washington University which is currently conducting tests and studies to be able to understand exactly how potential is the head of a termite in terms of nutrients.
So top tip, if you must eat a termite, eat it head first. There we must terminate our Terminator insights from Pembo Julius. And you'll be delighted to know there'll be a range of delicious termite snacks available in the canteen during... No, there won't. That's fine. Right. In at number 4, we have Melwyn Madelon, and we're lucky to have him at all, as in his early 20s, he spent 3 years studying to be a priest before deciding instead to embrace a career in computer science. Since then, Melwyn has embraced quite a few other things too. He's now a specialist in SIM card programming for mobile networks, but he was also one of the last scouts in Mauritius to win a Queen's Scout Award before it changed to the President's Scout Award. I'm fairly sure Amina will forgive him for that. And he says his favourite leisure activity is studying online courses. At the last count, Melwyn's got certificates in big data, entrepreneurship, leadership, inclusive leadership, the neuroscience of learning, data science, psychology, project management, and even the science of happiness. It's an extraordinary range. I'm not sure which of them he's going to be drawing on in the next 3 minutes, but we're about to find out as we scout Melwyn Madelon.
I've always been wondering what makes a great leader. What do these people have in particular? And I found out that one of these qualities is listening. Unfortunately for me, it's really hard to listen. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, if only you listen. Well, hopefully for me, we have ways to learn how to listen. One of these methods is called as deep listening. Deep listening is divided into different levels, and the first level is known as downloading. At the downloading phase, we just take information that are aligned with us and let all the others. This is because information that don't coincide with our feelings are contradictory, and it is hard for our brain to process this. We refer to this as cognitive dissonance. You know, I smoke to be healthy. Doesn't sound right, right? That's cognitive dissonance. Well, there's some way to go beyond this. We call this the second level, that is factual listening. During factual listening, what happens is that we see information in an unbiased way, that is from different angle. And at this point, we just take it without judging it, with an open mind. The third level of listening is referred to as empathic listening. We connect emotionally with the person. We feel what they feel. We see what they see. And at this level, our brain, this part of our brain that we call the amygdala, starts to send signal throughout our body, through sending emotion throughout our neurons. And at the same time, our brain starts to align and synchronize through a process that we call as brain coupling. Well, I guess that most of us must have felt these kinds of feeling all the time. However, there is an ultimate level that we refer to generative listening. This is the level where change happens, where we start to see things from the angle of different person. And it is at this stage that, thanks to the plasticity of our brain, we start to see things we start to create new connection and can see things from different aspects. And that's where creation and innovation happen. This method of deep listening has been applied on various fields throughout the world. For instance, in China, Alibaba, which is the largest store, uses this to do leadership management. In Mexico, it has been introduced in school to promote creativity of the kids. In Scotland, the government is using this with the civil society to promote dialogue. I have always been passionate about leaders. And now I realize that wherever you are, once we listen, we are all leaders. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you can help me. As a scientist, I am a very good factual listener, but I need help to develop the other side of me.
Maybe I can talk about this method of listening. Actually, it was introduced by Otto Scharmer, which is senior lecturer in management at the University of MIT. And this model has been tested on more than 30 verticals. And just to illustrate about science, how we work in science. For instance, it's the same process that we might be doing unknowingly. Because what we are doing basically with listening is moving from an ecosystem where we are centered to an ecosystem. So let's say we have a science problem. Now what we will do? We have our own research. So that's the first level. At this level, we get the information, and all of a sudden, someone just sent a white paper which contradicts what you have done. So you're not really happy about it. So then you shift to the second level. You start to see things from his perspective and see that we are dealing with this from another angle. And now you start to connect and see that, oh, he has introduced this new aspect. And with this new aspect, that is bringing some change. That's not how I've been doing this. So now you start to take what you have been doing and add this new element, and that is where generative science comes from. Because sometimes, sorry.
Where does intuition fit into this?
What? Sorry?
Intuition.
Intuition.
Yes.
Intuition, that is in deep listening. That is, I think that when we have intuition, let's say intuition is more like, let's say, where does intuition comes from, for instance? Well, we have all our senses. And actually, intuition is part of our senses. For instance, if you're walking and you see that there's someone walking behind me, some people might call it intuition. But what is happening actually is that
really
the
is
brain...
someone walking behind you.
Huh? Okay. You want me to read this? Or?
Keep going.
Okay. Actually, what happened is that it's the sound waves that is passing behind you. And you can notice through your ears that there's a shadow in the sound that is passing from behind. And this is this kind of insight that we cannot really notice. We know that someone is passing, but we are not aware that it's the sound that is altering behind us. But we just call it intuition. But most of the time, we can find a scientific evidence behind this.
Okay, your intuitions were correct. There was somebody behind you. Thank you, Madwin Melon.
Thank you.
Can't help but noticing that Nando the chicken is getting a lot of work to do today. There's a lot of people running slightly over time. Right, next up we have Shalini Nagamutu. Now, whereas Melwin takes a very broad spectrum approach to knowledge, Shalini concentrates on one small area, the teeny tiny creatures she can see down her microscope. As a student pursuing a degree in microbiology, Shalini says she's intrigued by how life that's invisible to the naked eye has such an enormous effect on the world that we live in and the life around us. She's aware, though, that although she finds these creatures fascinating, not everyone shares her enthusiasm. And she says that she's waiting for the day when she meets someone, tells them what she does, and there isn't a kind of awkward pause before they're prepared to shake her hand. So no long pauses now, and no shaking, just clapping of your hands for Famelab 5, talking about bacteria and their rise, Shalini Nagamutu.
So you just woke up, but you're feeling really tired. You have a splitting headache with a runny nose. So you go to the best doctor that you know, Google. You type in your symptoms, and the results say that you might have a bacterial infection. So you think taking antibiotics will help. But what you don't know is that taking unprescribed antibiotics might do you more harm than good. Now, even though bacteria are one-celled organisms, they are still capable of causing minor infections to deadly diseases. But with the discovery of antibiotics, history changed forever. Antibiotics are highly specific and well-trained assassins that target and kill only bacterial cells. They do this either by punching holes in the cell or by directly inhibiting important cellular function that is needed for survival. Now, thanks to antibiotics, diseases that were once considered deadly are now under control. But just like us, with our New Year resolutions of New Year, New Me, bacteria also like changes. Every now and then, bacteria gets new changes in their genetic material. These changes are mostly useless or even harmful to the bacteria, but some of them can help the bacteria develop new abilities, just like the mutant in X-Men. With mutations, bacteria can either hide from antibiotics or either directly challenge antibiotic attacks. But what will one single mutated bacterium do to us, giant humans? So, to enhance the attacks on us, bacteria communicate with each other, share the genes that help them become stronger to other bacteria, thus rise an army of antibiotic survivors. Because of this trade-off, some bacteria has now become resistant to almost all antibiotics that we try to throw at them, and they are known as superbugs. If not controlled, superbugs might just be the new zombie apocalypse. But we cannot let those superbugs take over us. There are various research going on to develop new effective treatments against bacterial infection. In fact, researchers are even planning to use viruses to attack bacteria and kill them. But just like bacteria like to communicate with each other to create resistance, we should also communicate science effectively to break this resistance. This is because we are one of the reasons bacteria mutate to superbugs. Whether it's taking unprescribed antibiotics or not finishing your course of prescribed antibiotics, all of this contributes to mutation in bacteria and therefore bacterial resistance. Science does not and cannot work without the cooperation of every single one of us. It's only together that we can make the change. Thank you.
Do you have a view about the problems of antibiotics in the food chain with commercial animals?
Well, because of this bacterial resistance against antibiotics, we are moving past the antibiotic era. Instead of focusing on developing new antibiotics, we are trying to use other methods to kill bacteria. Just like I mentioned, there's the use of viruses that specifically attack and kill bacteria. And there's also medicinal plants that are coming back again. And there's also more photodynamic therapy. Well, it was a great discovery of antibiotics, but now maybe it's time to move past the antibiotic era and focus on other new effective treatments.
Yes, so I was going to, can you explore that further? Can we win the arms race against bacteria?
Well, if we were able to develop antibiotics, we are surely able to develop new treatments. And there are a lot of fascinating scientists out there that are working hard to develop these new treatments. It's not impossible to win this war. We are humans, we are bigger, we are able to do it, definitely.
Okay, so where should we look for the next generation?
Maybe it's not always moving forward. Maybe sometimes we can move backwards, go back to the old traditional medicinal. And also there's the use of metal. This was from even the Egyptians period. They were using metal to keep bacteria away. And also communication is important because we are the ones that are taking antibiotics and increasing the resistance. If we are not able to communicate the new researchers, how will the people know that, oh, antibiotic is not good? So, obviously.
Okay, it's great to mutate with our Supergirl taking on Superbug, Shalini Nagamutu. Now, I didn't mention that Shalini is also very interested in animation. She thinks it's a fantastic way to communicate science, so she should get along with Famelab 6, Ashley Pourwa, who says he's such a fan of cartoons and animated movies, he doesn't mind watching the Teletubbies. Exactly. When not distracted by old TV shows, Ashley is a science teacher at Northfields International School. He's always on the lookout for great ways to engage students, particularly with his field of biotechnology, and he's recently found a new one he's particularly excited about. It's called Famelab. Coming on stage to engage, please welcome Ashley Pourwa.
22% of the Mauritian population suffers from diabetes. That's about 1 out of 4 people living with this condition. Diabetes runs in my family. I clearly remember my grandmother battling against it. The most scary part was when she was having hypoglycemia, which is common among many diabetics. Hypoglycemia is a condition where your blood sugar level, your blood glucose, drops below the normal level. If left untreated, this can lead to coma or worse, death. Of course, I will give her some glucose solution and she would be fine. This happened because the amount of insulin she was taking did not always match her diet and her lifestyle. So how can we overcome this problem? Daily dieting, exercising, not easy for everyone. However, red light could be the answer. Please, quickly raise your hand if you have a smartphone. Great. Then you're going to love this. Recently, a team of Chinese biomedical scientists have used a smartphone and a technique called optogenetics to control blood sugar level in diabetic mice. They've used this technique in order to, they use a smartphone in order to control the blood glucose level in these mice. The technology consists of three components. First, you have a glucose meter with a Bluetooth. Secondly, you have a smartphone. And third, you have an implant. So the scientists have demonstrated a kind of an intelligent feedback system in which the glucometer measures the blood glucose level, sends the data to the smartphone. The smartphone will process that data and send a signal to the skin implant that will produce insulin. The interesting part is the researchers have inserted some genetically modified mice cells in the implant. These cells, like small factory, will produce insulin only when exposed to red light from the LEDs. This technique is called optogenetics. Basically, we are controlling the cell using light. In a nutshell, the smartphone is like a maestro here, listening to the glucose meter in order to control the light in the implant, thereby controlling the amount of insulin produced. The mice with the implant had the normal blood glucose level for 15 days with no side effect. So this approach could be used in human diabetics, where we could come up with an automatic system that would both monitor and control the blood glucose level. This promising technology can certainly transform the lives of millions of diabetics all over the world. Diabetes can feel like a journey on a dark road. However, science can lighten up this road. And this light might just be red in color. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you think it's easy to extrapolate an experiment on mice straight to humans like this?
Normally, it takes time. Even with this research, they've used that implant. And still, of course, there are a few limitations. But what they've proven is that cell-based therapy could actually work. And so here the success was we were able to control the cells in the body of the mice using an external method. Here we're using the smartphone and that technology called optogenetics, where using light, we can control the activity within the cells.
Science or changes in lifestyle are more likely to have an impact on diabetes in the future?
Well, obviously, we are in a race. Lifestyle, like we said, making adjustment to your diet and exercising is still important. But however, there are cases like type 1 diabetes where we just need such kind of solution and we're always on the lookout of it. And this could potentially be an answer.
Any chance that type 1 diabetes is lifestyle related as well, that it's things like overuse of antibiotics and the immune system's reaction?
I mean, that could happen, of course, if because of cancer or being exposed to certain chemicals. But generally, type 1 diabetes is observed, is known as juvenile diabetes. So this happened at childhood and is generally maybe because of genetic factor, and yes, maybe of a viral infection. So for these kids, for these people, type 1 diabetes, this could be a potential savior for them.
Okay, we have to red light for judges' questions, but a green light for some applause, please, for Ashley Pourroy. Thank you, Ashley. I now have a mental image of mice with smartphones ordering low-calorie drinks. Now, Ashley takes us past the halfway point onto our 7th of our 11 finalists, Roshan Tilak. Roshan is 20 and from the City of Flowers, Katrabon, but now studying telecommunications engineering at the University of Mauritius. He says that 2 decades spent on Earth have led him to develop an interest in the human brain. Makes him sound like an alien on some sort of long-term mission here. Roshan thinks that understanding what's inside our heads can make us not just smarter and more efficient, but help us evolve into superior beings. Not sure how much evolving he can stimulate us in the next 3 minutes, but I'm sure he'll give it a try. Get ready for the brain-expanding Roshan Tilak.
We used to think that we only use part of the brain, and the brain goes silent when doing nothing. But this is totally wrong. Even at rest, thinking of nothing, the brain is highly active and consumes a huge 20% of our energy rates. But how do we learn, and why do some people learn faster than others? Each time you learn a new fact or skill, you change your brain, and this is something called neuroplasticity. Each of our behaviors changes and reconstructs the brain, and this is not affected by age and takes place all the time. This brain organization helps to reconstruct the brain after damage. The brain changes in 2 ways to support learning. First, by increasing the flow of chemical between the brain cells. The brain functions by transferring chemical between the brain cells called neuron. To support learning, the brain increases the rate of these chemicals. Here, information are traveling at speeds of 430 km per hour, which are way faster than the Formula 1 racing cars. And the complexity of this organ is that there's not 1, not 100, not even 1 million of these connections in your brain, but there's a big fat 100 billion of those. Now, because these changes take place rapidly, this supports your short-term memory. The second way the brain changes is by changing the connections between the neurons. Here, the physical structure of the brain itself is changing. This takes a little bit more time, but it contributes to your long-term memory. These 2 processes combine together when you learn a new skill. For example, the first day you learn a new skill, whether it's math, playing piano, or even driving a car, the first day, if you are paying attention, of course, everything seems so logical and easy. And this is because of the increase of flow of chemicals. But maybe the first session wasn't long enough to create these permanent connections, and therefore, in most of the time, you tend to forget everything a few days later. So if we all possess this beautiful mind of ours, then why do some people learn faster than others? It's true that practice will expose your brain to certain situations, making it reconstruct itself this way. The plastic ability of our brain, however, is unique for each one of you. Some of us will tend to reconstruct our brain faster to certain situations, while some of us might take a little bit more of time. This explains why some of us strive at education, while some of us don't. While maybe some of us might take a little bit more of time to generate certain things, thanks to genetics. So when you leave this room today, your brain won't be the same as it was as you entered this room this afternoon. Not because of me, not because of Quentin Cooper, and not because it's a Famelab final, but just because your brain is neuroplastic. And the amazing thing here is that your brain will change differently for each one of you. Thank you very much.
So do you think busy lifestyles, running back and forth from the office to the shops and back again, do you think that will be affecting how our brain works?
Yes, in fact, everything in our daily life changes the brain. Maybe you won't see it. Why? Because you don't have one of these connections. You have 1 billion one of these. I don't know if maybe let's do a little math. If 1 billion connections, the probabilities are 1 billion factorial, which are a huge combination. And therefore, each of its steps, like I'm talking to you right now, maybe I'm changing your brain somewhere. Therefore, going to the store will definitely change your brain.
true that the brain can't feel pain? The brain can't feel pain. Is that true?
Yes, the brain can't feel pain because we don't have any nerve receptors there. The amazing thing here is that we can do an open surgery with your brain and you're still conscious and you won't feel anything.
I wasn't thinking of it, but thank you.
Just to explore the previous question, so can we modify our lifestyles in some way that will help our brain to be healthier?
Let's say, there are people who suffer from brain deficiencies, right? But the brain is, the thing that they discovered is that the brain is intelligent enough to reconstruct itself. So if you want to get healthier, your brain can do it. Just believe in going healthier and your brain will believe in it.
Okay, you'll have to leave it there. Brain gain neurology with no apology from the unique Roshan Tilak, who seems to have brought a particularly large crowd of supporters. Will be paying attention to you when it comes to the audience vote later. Now, as I'm sure most of you are aware, Mauritius and its Mascarenes neighbours are home to a huge range of unique flora and fauna. Now, I know the President is particularly aware of this because she's a founding member of the Pan-African Association of African Medicinal Plants and co-wrote the first ever African herbal pharmacopoeia, correct? Good, I hope I'm glad. Right. Or are you busy being Amina now, not being the President? No, fine, okay. Our next Famelabber, Davina Labine, has just completed her PhD studying one of these unique plant groups, the Mascarenes aloes, known locally as mazabron and long valued for their healing properties. She's hoping these aloes could eventually lead to developing new medicines and treatments, and believes that this kind of bioprospecting could potentially tackle all sorts of global problems, not just diseases, but things like malnutrition. Davina says she's completely passionate about promoting bioscience and loves talking about plants to almost anybody at any time, even us. Plant your hands together for Davina Labine.
Marine sponges. Are they animal or plant? Well, they are indeed animal which come in all different color, shape and sizes. Many of us have used them in our bathroom while showering, and the most famous one is a SpongeBob SquarePants, a cartoon character who entertained children in his pineapple from the sea. But believe me, sponges are more exciting than this. So allow me to take you to a journey to explore one of these most amazing marine organisms. Sponges are widespread in the ocean, from tropical to Arctic, from shallow reef to tidal, all the way down to the greatest depth of the ocean. These simple animals with no specialized tissue, such as brain or heart, are actually filter feeders. They feed by consuming suspended particles from water. They are also hosts to microorganisms which make up 60% of their biomass. Sponges doesn't have the ability to move around. So, how do these species defend themselves from the predators? They do so by producing a vast array of chemicals which are used not only for defense, but also for communication and reproduction. Let's take a simple scenario. Imagine an alga is growing on the top of a sponge, and it's growing so well that it starts overgrowing it. But the sponge doesn't want to be overgrown. So the sponge will produce some kind of chemical that will inhibit the cell division in the alga and prevent it from growing. It is not too far-fetched to think that these chemicals may play a similar role in preventing cell division in cancer cells, and hence represent new therapeutics for the treatment of human disease. Over 160 compounds has been reported to occur in the jaspi sponges, some with prominent biological properties such as antibiotic and anti-cancer. The endemic Mauritian jaspi sponge has been found to exhibit greater than 75% toxicity against 5 human cancer cell line. Well, these are amazing facts about one sponge only. Now imagine the huge diversity of sponge we have in our ocean. So far, over 8,000 marine sponge has been identified, and there are many more to be identified. Biological diversity is equal to chemical diversity, which is equal to potential lead for drug discovery program. It is estimated that more than 200 novel compounds from marine sponge are reported every year. Marine sponges, the first animal on Earth, as suggested by genetic evidence, are actually factories for curious molecules. Thank you.
Thank you for this expose. You mentioned the research going on for the cancer cell line.
Yes.
But from there to get onto a drug, you need to proceed with
Yes.
all the toxicity studies.
Yes.
How do you feel about this? Because there's not a lot of data in this.
Yeah,
project.
exactly. Because first of it, like if we consider Mauritius, for example, like we found that it's toxic, yeah. But there are so many different steps. Like we have to isolate the compound first, and then we have to do preclinical studies and clinical studies. And sometimes what happens when we do research with a crude extract, it doesn't mean that it's going to give us the same result at the end of the experiment, like after the clinical studies, because sometimes compound act in synergy, that is, they act together. And in context of Mauritius, we are facing quite a lot of challenge because we have insufficient funding to address scientific and technological problems, including clinical trials.
So sponges are also found in the Antarctic, funnily enough.
Yes.
And I see them quite regularly now. So why are they so successful? Why are they found from the poles to the tropics?
Sorry?
Why are sponges so successful? Why can they grow everywhere in the oceans?
Because sponges are one of the most prolific organisms. Like, for example, if you cut one piece of it, it's going to grow again. So, and they are very easily adapted to different changes, like climate changes. For example, ocean acidification may cause problem to coral reef, but sponges has kind of developed that kind of adaptation. And we have found that, actually not me, but people from the University of Wellington has found that sponges has the ability to adapt to ocean acidification because of its cyanobacteria in it, hosting in it, yeah.
Yep, very adaptable, found everywhere, just like Famelabbers. One more time, please, for our Sponge for Knowledge, Davina Labi. And I said at the start that she loves talking about plants of every kind, and then she came on and talked about animals. You see, that's how versatile these Famelabbers are. Right, in at number 9, we have Sheikh Ella Ibicus. No, I'll try that again. Ella Ibicus. I've had trouble with that name all day. A lecturer at the University of Mauritius, currently on study leave while completing a PhD in computer science. Sheikh describes lecturer as being just one of his many current roles. He lists them as being, in order, lecturer, student, friend, husband, and father. Although longer term, he says his biggest dream is to one day become the world president, which presumably might rank above lecturer. A more immediate challenge for him, though, would be where to put Famelab winner on that list, although that rather depends on the next 3 minutes, where we'll be talking about ultraviolet light in the Mauritian context. Please welcome to the stage lecturer, student, friend, husband, father, and Famelab finalist, Sheikh Ella Ibicus. Name right.
In the next few minutes, I will be reminding you about how our elders were far smarter than we tend to believe. Ultraviolet light was discovered about 200 years ago and is invisible to the naked eye for humans. Today, ultraviolet light, UV for short, is used in a wide range of applications, ranging from forensics, whereby UV is used to detect bodily fluids such as semen or urine on crime scenes. In hospitals, they are used to sterilize medical equipment. And even in Mauritius, some toilets are being equipped with UV-enhanced hand dryers to kill bacteria on your hand. And for those who like white teeth, UV can help for that as well. But there is one application that has been of UV in Mauritius that is being forgotten by the younger generation. Myself, I was reminded about it rather recently by my mother. Let me tell you how. At home, we've got kids, which means loads of fun, but at the same time, loads of laundry. Stains from poop, from food, from dirt while playing outside, etc. So we've tried different types of washing liquids, washing powders, while avoiding, of course, harsh chemicals because of sensitive skins for children. But the safe ones are quite expensive. So in our quest for a solution, that's where my mother fits in. She proposed sun bleaching, locally known as Metlin Savonné. Turns out that it works because of UV. The sun is a natural source of UV. 10% of the sun's light output is ultraviolet, 40% visible light, and the remaining infrared radiation. Lucky for us, most of this 10% get absorbed by the atmosphere. Only 3% reach ground level when the sun is at its zenith. Those 3% are sufficient to work in the process of sun bleaching. So these stains, they are like dyes, which at a very small level, they contain light-absorbing color bodies known as chromophores. These chromophores get destroyed by UV. Technically, they are called breaking their chemical bonds. So that's how fading occurs in the colors. The technical term for that fading is called photodegradation. Of course, some of you might have guessed, so these colors will fade away as well when you put them in the sun for too long. So the right balance here is important. So next time, why not try sun bleaching? You'll have better luck at it rather than trying to whiten your teeth, looking at the sun, smiling. Thank you very much.
You made a very interesting point towards the end there about just the right balance of UV, because clearly it can destroy things as well. So
yes.
How do you get that right balance?
So the thing is that the longer you stand in the sun, for example, the more radiation you're getting. So this accumulates over time. And also, we have to bear in mind that the UV that comes from the sun, the whole spectrum is divided mainly into 3 parts. So you've got UVA, B, and C. Most of UVC gets absorbed by the atmosphere. So this is the most dangerous bit, UVC. So they alter DNA. So basically, if you have little bits of A, B, C for a longer time, your DNA will change. So skin cancer over time. And UVB, that's most of it, is less dangerous, but still, you have to protect yourself using sun cream and all that. Whereas UVC, UVA was considered the safest one. But recently, they've discovered that all those UVA, B, and C are as dangerous as each other. So they all contribute to that.
So how do you protect your washing from getting skin cancer but getting clean?
Good question. The thing is that these clothes, they are not alive. So dead particles, they won't get cancer. So they react differently. Whereas if you are standing in the sun, our skin consists of cells which are alive. And if you alter their DNA over a longer time, they will get replaced, but for longer time, these cells learn how not to die. So if they've got an altered DNA, mutation occurs, and they won't be dying. So that's how skin cancer gets created, basically.
Okay, UV been watching. Sheikh El Arbigus. Ultra round of applause for Sheikh, please. Almost there now. 9 down, 2 to go. So statistically likely, you've already seen our winner, although our final 2 finalists might have something to say about that. And the first of the last is Roshni Rajkumar. After a chemistry degree from the University of Mauritius, Roshni has somehow survived 10 years in one of the toughest jobs in the world, being a science teacher. It may or may not be coincidental. She's also done courses in self-defense and wrestling. Roshni is now a chemistry educator at the Adventist College and studying for a postgraduate certificate in education. She says she's passionate not only about science, but about transmitting that passion to her students. So, for the next 3 minutes, consider yourselves enrolled in the classroom of Roshni Rajkumar.
Kiribati, Solomon Islands, Maldives, 3 low-lying countries that have been predicted to disappear by the end of this very century due to a rise in sea level. The culprit? Carbon dioxide. This molecule, this gas, which absorbs and traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere, causing the global temperature to rise. The amount of carbon dioxide in air has been constantly rising since the Industrial Revolution due to the burning of petrol, which is a mixture of these types of substances called alkanes, made of carbon and hydrogen atoms attached to each other. And when you burn petrol, these carbon and hydrogen atoms detach from each other, combine with oxygen in air to become water and carbon dioxide, which move off into the atmosphere. Now imagine that we can take back these carbon dioxide molecules, put them back together with water to get back our alkane. Plants have been doing a process similar to this for millions of years, photosynthesis, by combining carbon dioxide and water to produce their food, glucose. Today, we can also do it in a single-step reaction called alkane reverse combustion. But instead of producing glucose, like plants, we can produce synthetic petrol. This process does not even require a large amount of energy. It takes place in the presence of light, heat, both of which that can be concentrated from the sun, and a catalyst, which is a substance that simply helps the reaction take place. What makes this process even more interesting as compared to other energy alternatives for vehicles is that it is providing us with the same fuel that our vehicles are using today. So, no need to change all the vehicles of our country, nor the current fuel distribution system. In case some of you are still wondering, what is the point of taking carbon dioxide from air, putting it back together as petrol, and then burning it to send it right back into the atmosphere? That is not really helping with the global warming problem, right? Wrong. The difference we're bringing is that we're not digging the carbon from the ground to send it into the air. We're taking it from the air to send it right back there. This is what we call a carbon neutral process. Even though we're not decreasing the amount of carbon dioxide, we're not increasing it either. So that would definitely put a brake on the global warming process. We, as inhabitants of a small island which is extremely vulnerable to the adverse effects of global warming, and as citizens of the world, it is imperative that we seriously start looking into these alternative methods of fuel production if we don't want thousands of people to lose their homes and even their countries in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, some scientists say that we are already past tipping point in as much as too much carbon in the air. So how do you remove this extra?
There are different ways.
first of all, you're right about it, because carbon dioxide is one of those gases which kind of stays for a long time in the atmosphere compared to other gases like methane, nitrous oxide, and even water vapor, which have lower cycles. Like, for example, methane, after 10 years, it would be gone because it would be converted to carbon dioxide. But carbon dioxide, it has been seen that after 100 years, about 80% of it would be gone from the atmosphere due to natural cycles, but about 20% of the carbon dioxide stays on for about 800 years. So whatever carbon dioxide we have already produced, it might still be there for the next 800 years, so we're still doing it. So coming back to your question, there are other methods that have been explored, like carbon dioxide sequestration, like when we're burning the carbon dioxide and then putting it as carbon dioxide into the ground. That would be one of the methods I could use. But I think ideally, if we could be planting more trees, but given that the growing world population, that might also be a little bit difficult. So probably science is proposing, at least if we can't at least stop it, but at least put a brake on it, like I'm saying, if we can at least stop digging the petrol and sending it into the air, if at least we can recycle it, at least that would be putting a brake before we can actually change all the vehicles, because that will take time, and that will consist of a lot of investment at the same time. So as a transition, this could potentially be a method to save us and our children.
Roughly how much of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide?
Today, it is about 400 parts per million. That represents about 0.04% of the atmosphere, which consists about a 35% increase since the last 100 years. Because before it was, before the Industrial Revolution, that was about 0.03%, 300 parts per million. So in the last 40 years, it has increased by about 35%.
So Mauritius is a small country, lots of us drive backwards and forwards. How do we grow enough plants?
I didn't get you, sorry.
How do we grow enough plants to create the petrol that this country needs in such a small space?
The plants to create petrol. So the proposal I'm putting forward is something that definitely, because carbon dioxide is found everywhere. Even if in Mauritius, the plant itself would not take a large surface, not really, because basically what we need is a system to draw in the air that can filter off the carbon dioxide, and that would not take a large space. And then connected to that would be that system where we have our photocatalyst and then concentrating sunlight on it. So that would not really take a lot of space. But given that Mauritius is a small country, we can also consider other places in the world, because like I'm just saying, planting trees, they don't grow everywhere, but we can even be putting these types of plants in deserts where trees don't grow. So that would be the perfect alternative together with
I know you're talking about solving one of the biggest problems on the planet, but we're on a tight schedule here, so we'll have to leave it there. Some globally warm applause for the alkane alchemy of Rojni Rajkumar. And what a cruel question Terry threw at her there, but she knew the percentages of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That could have thrown anybody, but she knew them all as well. Right, finally in this final, and remember the order is random, so last isn't necessarily best, but it could be. We have John Meshach. John is like Pambo from Kenya, and like Pambo, he's at the École Centrale de Nantes, where he's studying civil engineering. A key moment in John deciding to become an engineer was literally a key moment when, as a child, we created a button unlock keypad for the front door of his home. These days, John's not content simply with home improvement. He says his dream is to use science and technology to reduce suffering and eradicate problems that threaten humanity. First, though, he'd quite like to win Famelab. The door is wide open for John Meshach.
6.8 people die every year in this world due to drinking unsafe water. 900 children die every day across the world due to the same cause. And 1.8 billion people across the world do not have access to clean water. This means that out of every 3 people across the world, 1 of them do not have access to clean water. Some people have used charcoal, which is the simplest form of carbon, to purify water through filtration. But technology is at our disposal. Carbon has been synthetically amplified to make carbon fibers which have 98% accuracy in purifying water. And how is this going to affect our lives? The synthetically made carbon has 3 layers. This means that it has an activated carbon fiber, which is able to filter out all pharmaceutical chemicals that are going to harm your body. It also has an ion exchange fiber, which is able to remove all heavy metals and poisonous metallic ions like lead, mercury, and even copper. But in turn, the ion exchange fiber is going to replace those metallic ions with calcium, which are going to strengthen your brains and your bones. But also, last but not least, it also has a nanomembrane fiber, which filters out all microorganisms, like bacteria. Hence, they do not have access to your body. But how is this going to be used in our everyday life? Take, for example, a bottle like this, which is masked with sensors at the bottom. The fiber is going to be inserted inside, like a filament. Hence, every time you pour water inside, the sensors will be able to detect whether the water is clean or dirty. If the water is clean, you can go ahead and drink it. But if the water is dirty, you just need to turn the carbon filter to 360 degrees. That is a perfect circle. And hence, you're going to clean and purify your water. But that's not all. The carbon fiber is not only used in small bottles, like that case. It can be produced in large scale. Hence, it can be used in big tanks. Not Shark Tank. It's used in bigger tanks, which is able to feed and be able to provide access to water to very many people. And hence, all of you in this room will have access to clean water and the wider world. So the next time you're looking to your left, you're looking to your right, you're looking to a healthier and safer society. Thank you and merci beaucoup.
Did you say you had a sensor when the time that the water is clean, you'll know it's purified?
Yes. In the medical field, they have been using TI Citara, which is a Linux platform to be able to test the clean water for injection. So it is also a better form of knowing whether the water is clean or dirty. Hence, you only need to use the fiber when the water is clean, or when the water is dirty, rather.
So how much do these filters cost? Is this sustainable for communities with very little money?
Thank you so much. So depending on the size, the carbon filter costs from $4.99 to $9.99, according to the scale of which it's produced. Like, it can be produced for a small bottle, for a bit larger tank, and even for the largest tank.
But how long does it last for?
Yeah, thank you so much. So the carbon fiber is not eternally durable. It wears out after some time. So a typical carbon fiber lasts for approximately 3 months. That is 90 days.
Okay, then I'm a big fan of low calcium pure water. How does it taste?
Okay, thank you. I guess all of you have access to the bottled water. It's not different. The water is clean, and it does not taste bad. It tastes normal.
I think what he's after is, does it taste better than termites? Okay, can we leave there some unfiltered applause, please, for our final finalist, John Meshach. And sorry, the termites might taste great. I'll try them later, honestly. So those are our 11 Famelab finalists. They've battled through heats on auditions to get this far. They've all got the will and the skill, but they've also, being scientists, got the maths to know that 90.909090, you get the idea, percent of them are destined not to be the winner. That's just the way it goes. There can only be one Famelab 2017 champion. That decision, as well as the two runners-up, rests in the capable hands of our three judges. So can we please send them on their way to deliberate with a burst of applause? Dr. Simon Morley, Terry Smith, and Her Excellency President Amina Gurib Fakim. So, be wise, be thoughtful, but above all, be quick. We need your decisive decision in about 20 minutes maximum. And the same, except the 20 minutes bit, applies to yourselves. It's make your mind up time. All you have to do is pick whoever you think gave the most scintillating, stimulating presentation and coped best with the judges' questions. Now, you may have friends or colleagues among the Famelabbers. You may be related to them. You may have been dragged here by them, particularly if your name is Roshan Tilak. Put all of that aside, right? Okay? Voting is anonymous. You can always tell them that you voted for them, but vote for whoever you think was actually best. And just in case you need a quick reminder of who did what, we've made you a little video.
Hello, my name is Sanjay Matadin and I've been speaking to you about the importance of sleep. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Farheen Hosseini. Today I talk about why stars matter to us, to all of us.
Hi everyone, my name is Julius Pambo and I've talked to you today about the amazing, tasty termite. I hope you like this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melwin and today I've been speaking about listening.
Hi, I'm Shalini Nagamathu, and today I've talked to you about the rise of bacteria against antibiotics.
Hi, my name is Ashley Purwa, and today my talk was about using smartphone and red light to control diabetes.
Hi, I'm Roshan Tilak, and today I'll just talk to you about neuroplasticity.
Hi, I'm Devina. My today talk was about marine sponges as a chemical factory.
Hello, I'm Sheikh Ilahi Bukras, and I've spoken to you today about ultraviolet light and sun bleaching, locally known as Mitlan Savoni. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roshni Rajkumar. I just talked to you about alkane reverse combustion, a process by which carbon dioxide and water are combined to produce synthetic petrol.
Hi everyone, my name is John Meshak Rotich from Kenya, and my talk was about technological carbon filtration. Thank you.
Quentin Cooper and my... No, it wasn't. No, fine. So just put a tick or a cross, whatever you prefer, name next to one of the boxes on the sheet you should have picked up when you got in, and please do it right now. Then our handy team will gather them from you, and we should get the votes quickly. While they do that, as soon as you've voted, we're going to have a 10-minute break just to stretch your legs. And I mean a literal, non-metaphoric, actual, chronological 10 minutes. So we'll be back here at 4:45, please. Don't be late. So we'll reconvene, if reconvenient, at 16:45. I was doing my maths there. 4:45, please. But please vote before you go. Back here, please, in 10 minutes. And we've got a little treat for you then as well. Thank you. So welcome back, those who are back. We gave you a little bit of extra time because they managed to cunningly arrange the food in a way that involved a very long British queue. So it made me feel right back at home as well. So I have an envelope here because the results are already in for the audience vote. I can see our judges are back. So either they've reached the decision or they've just given up the task entirely. I'm not sure which. But I think we'll be coming to that in a second. But we thought a little treat for you before we go straight to the results. And it's also in the nature of a competition. We're just eking out the suspense just a little bit as well. But we heard from 11 people giving different exciting versions of science, a lot of it about the the joy of research, but we thought we'd talk a little bit about the practical applications of this as well, and particularly in Mauritius and beyond. I'm very happy to say that with us today is Paul Hayden, non-scientist, he stresses, and non-executive director of the UK's Natural Environment Research Council, NERC for short, which supports a whole raft of research, training and other stuff related to environmental science, including the British Antarctic Survey. And Paul, I think, is going to tell us about a couple of the projects he's been working on here and elsewhere. And can we give him a particularly warm welcome to the stage, because remember, he's following 11 Famelabulous Famelabbers, and it's a brave man who speaks next. So please welcome Paul Hayden.
I think, I'm on. Thank you and good afternoon. First, an admission. I am a bit of a fake. I am not a scientist. I've never even been that interested in science because I've never been to Famelab before. But I realised in my career I've been using science for many years and I didn't even know it. In the UK, I'm just a pure, simple rescue guy. I started off as a firefighter. I now work in my day job with people like the UN and others and work around the world on disaster projects. But I'm not a scientist. But then I realised that some of the things I was looking at really depended on science. In the UK system, when you start off as a firefighter, you can become a chief fire officer and a chief executive, and then you can get offered an especially new job for no pay. That's a specially British system. And I was given the national job for a natural hazard disasters, and I was really disappointed because I wanted something more interesting like counter-terrorism or something that sounded more dynamic. But I was given natural hazards and environmental science, so I looked after flooding and windstorms and forest fires and things like this. And suddenly my mind was opened up to a whole range of new disaster types. And I started to study. I went over to America after Hurricane Katrina, and we started to look at how we respond to major floods. So forgetting the personal tragedy, the things that I'm interested in, how can we save more people, how can we prevent damage to property, I started to look at things like if we could get the meteorologists to talk to the hydrologists, then we'd know when the rain was going to come, and then we can look at what that rain will do when it hits the ground, and then we can start to model where will be flooded, where won't be flooded. It started off on simple things like this. Mauritius, let's just think about some of the challenges we have in Mauritius, because I've had the pleasure to work here on a number of projects. Let's look at things like cyclones, at storm surges, at tsunamis, at landslides, all of those things which your National Disaster Centre, and my colleagues are here today, have worked up plans and preparations for. But where does science, where does NERC science fit into those kind of things? Well, if you think about the challenges for Mauritius of sea level rise, some of the inputs for sea level rise are coming to us from Antarctica, because actually if we don't understand what's happening on the ice sheets of Antarctica, we can't make plans and preparations for Katsur here in Mauritius, where I was here a year or so ago when we did an evacuation drill to go to the new tsunami shelter at Katsur. We can't even plan where's the safe place to put that tsunami shelter unless we know how high will the sea be, how bad will the storms be. If we want to start to think about what are the new cyclone kind of preparations we should make in Mauritius in the next 50 years, in the next 100 years, then we need to understand, will the cyclone or will the next big cyclone be another Hollander, or will it be stronger? Will the cyclones be more frequent or less frequent? That kind of science is what NERC is at the heart of. If we look at some of the terrible flash floods that killed all those people in Port Louis just a few years ago, and we start to look to the future, not just for our existing towns in Mauritius, but for the new developments that we need to build for all of the youngsters that are going to need homes for the future. Where's the safe place to build that town? Well, we don't want to put it where there'll be a landslide. We don't want to put it in an area that will flood very badly. So again, an understanding of the future climate of Mauritius, what rainfall patterns will be. Will the rainfall become far heavier, even if it's shorter in duration? Because that will drive the things which all the young people we've heard from today will go away and engineer away with things like the drainage standards and everything else. So as a simple rescue guy that's not interested in science, I'd implore all of you in the room today, perhaps you came along with a Famelabber and you came along to support them, but even if you didn't think science was important to you, you may become a convert like me as a non-scientist and as a non-academic, but someone that has recognised that actually that science can make a real difference to people's lives. And anything we can do to help, we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was lovely. Very tough act. Paul Hayden from NERC. He may not be a scientist, but being in NERC, he's one letter away from being a nerd. So, only one last little thing before we get to our results, and that is a quick word from our sponsor. Now, there's all sorts of people, all sorts of partners for British Council without whom none of this would be possible. I won't go into all the details, but we are very grateful to the Ministry of Education, Café Scientifique Mauritius, the British High Commission, the University of Middlesex, especially Dr. Roshan Ramesur, and of course the President herself. And we're also very deeply indebted to our venue today, the Rajiv Gandhi Science Centre, who've let us use these facilities free of charge. So can we show a little bit of appreciation for all that they've done, please? Thank you. Thank you. But as well as all of the above, we have one sponsor without whom none of this would be possible, and that's top investment management company Fundsmith. I could say a lot about all they've done and the synergy between themselves and Famelab, but I thought it was better to let them do that for themselves. So please welcome their head of international marketing for Fundsmith, Greville Ward.
Thank you, Quinton. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes about... we at Fundsmith are very pleased to be the sponsor of this Famelab in Mauritius, and we are an investment company which runs funds with an office in the United States, one in London and one in Black River, Mauritius. We decided to sponsor Famelab because there are certain similarities between the way that we look at investment and what we think the Famelab contestants are doing. And those are as follows. We think that the Famelab contestants are demystifying science or maths or engineering, and then they're trying to communicate that to people who, like me, don't know very much about maths or science and engineering. And in some sense, when we started Fundsmith, we were trying to do the same for investment. We think investment is a very complicated subject. It's one that many people don't understand. And we felt that if we produced investment products that were easy to understand and that we could communicate to investors what we were doing, we would have a much better chance of success. So we have a very simple process, which I'm going to outline because it would be good if you used it even if you didn't invest with us. The process is written down up there. We have a three-step process. We buy good companies. We buy shares in companies like Colgate, for example. I hope you all brushed your teeth this morning. We own Colgate. We own Microsoft because you probably all send emails using Outlook. And we invest in companies like Nestle because those of you above a certain age, I hope, had coffee this morning, like bottled water, and also like eating chocolate. So we find these really great companies that have been around for a long time. We try and buy them at the right price, and then we do the hardest thing of all in investment, which is nothing. And we think it's incredibly important, whatever you're investing in, to be patient. We live in a very active world where people are trying to persuade you to do things all the time. In investment, you get a better result doing exactly the opposite. So we got involved in Famelab because we felt that we like a world that is made simpler, and that's certainly what we're trying to do with investment. Why did we come to Mauritius? We came here because the weather's terrible in England, and it's much, much nicer to work in Mauritius. Partly that, and partly that we have one of our funds which does a lot of business in Africa, makes investments in Africa and in India, and Mauritius was perfectly placed for that geographically, but also we did a lot of work on finding a country that we could move into that we felt would be useful for what it was that we were trying to do, and we hope that as we grow in Mauritius, that Mauritius is good for us and that we are good for Mauritius. So with that, I just want to congratulate all of the finalists for their fantastic performances this afternoon and the eventual winner, and I hope that some of you in the audience today who have not taken part in Famelab but have seen it today might think of doing so next year, and hopefully we'll be sponsoring it again. Thank you very much.
Greville Ward, thank you. And now from A Ward to awards. The results are in, so can we please get our judges back on stage with some applause, please? Please welcome back Terry Smith from our funders Fundsmith, Dr. Simon Morley from the British Antarctic Survey, and Her Excellency the President of the Republic of Mauritius, Dr. Amina Gurib-Fakih. Yes. So, step forward. Before we reveal any results, we just want a little bit from you, a sense of how easy, how hard. Has one of you got a microphone? If we can get a microphone over here as well, that would be tremendously useful. I'll give it to you first, but you might want to share it around. How How challenging, how much fun was it to try? So don't blow the game by giving any names, but how easy was it to reach a decision? How difficult?
Very, very easy. The president told us what to do. Couldn't have been simpler.
Right, you're purely here for decoration, right?
Maybe I can add some more details to that.
Right,
No, we were blown away by the standard of the talks, the breadth of the talks, and then we get together in a room and we try to compare, we try to pick out which strengths made the winner and which strengths unfortunately didn't quite make it. It was incredibly hard. There was such dynamic presentations. It really got us arguing away in there.
And you can't really go for the importance of the topic. You've got to go for the quality of the presentation. It's not about which is the most significant. It's about the content, clarity, charisma, as we said right at the start.
Clarity, charisma, that's right, absolutely. And there are some talks that just slightly stood out there that made us, and especially me, I will go away and I will look things up and I will look into this in more detail. I've been given a spur from these talks that will really make me go away and look further. And that was one of the things that I wanted to take from this, was a talk that really made me engage.
Okay, we've had a flippant comment from Terry, a very passionate one from Simon. Amina, are you in the middle?
I'll try and make it as presidential as possible.
Of course. Now she's back to president. You just can't keep up, right?
No, I echo what my colleagues have just said. I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I mean, as you said, we were there last year in Cape Town, and it was like living again that moment when we were really looking at a bunch of young people very passionate about what they're doing, also very clear in what they were saying. But I think what was more impressive was that they were very much au fait with the content and the statistics and the data. So that was quite very, very impressive as well. So it was a tough exercise, but it was a nice one because
yes, I didn't see any of them being particularly tripped up by the questions, so they obviously had the background knowledge as well. Okay, let's not drag this out too much, but just for a teeny bit of drama, can we get back all our 11 Famelabbers onto the stage, please? So please welcome back Sanjay Matadine, Fareen Hassani, Pambo Julius, Melwin Madelon, Shalini Nagamutu, Ashley Purwa, Roshan Tila, Davina Labine, Sheikh Ella Ibukas, Roshni Rajkumar, and John Mesha. Come on up, guys. So just line yourselves up here, maybe not completely obscuring the judges, I think that would be politically insensitive, but just spread yourselves out here. So there's going to be 4 awards in total, 2 runners-up and a Famelab champion as chosen by our judges. First, our audience vote winner, who'll get 10,000 rupees and the knowledge that they are the people's choice. I have been handed this envelope, which supposedly contains the name of the winner. After this year's Oscars, I'm not entirely trusting. This just may be a very late bribe. It's not, and I didn't have any input. So, here it is. The winner is, congratulations to Roshni Rajkumar. Roshni, the envelope does not contain the 10,000 rupees. It just contains the thing saying your name. So for now, trust us. There are witnesses. There are cameras. We'll come back to you about the stuff later. So can we please thank Roshni for now? Joe back because it's... So will she also be one of the winners as chosen by our judges? We're about to find out. As is traditional, we will start with our second runner-up. Is one of you ready to tell us who you've chosen? Okay, Simon, it falls to you.
Okay.
Hang on, why are you opening an envelope? You're one of the judges. You know who the second runner-up is. Okay. Just take the mystery away, going, hang on, I wrote this name down here. Do you want to maybe say a little bit about why they were the second runner-up?
Yeah. So we were fascinated by the technology. We were captivated by the presentation, and this is one that I will really go and look up, how red light will actually lead to people being helped with their diabetes. So
stand to one side. Right, congratulations, celebrations. Right now we come to our first runner-up, and with a look of you, Terry, you're going to tell us who that is.
I am, and the first runner-up impressed us. The word science, as you probably know, is derived from the Latin "I know," and we like somebody who told us the story behind the area that they were informing us on, and handled our questions very well in the area of antibiotics. Charlene, congratulations.
Brilliant, congratulations. Right, that just leaves one little thing to do, which is obviously going to disappoint some of the people on the stage. One of the remaining 9 is going to be our Famelab 2016 champion, and 8 of them aren't. So they're going to get 25,000 rupees, they're going to go to the Cheltenham Science Festival, and I guess as chair of our judges, it falls to you, Amina, to tell us who's won and perhaps why.
So we have already mentioned our winner, who has spoken about climate change. And what I was fascinated with, the fact that I have now come out perhaps a bit more enlightened as on carbon sequestration, how we should not be digging coal, how should we be digging any resources, how we should be capturing and ensuring that the cycle is maintained up in the air, and the technology we need to bring so that we can remove the carbon again through carbon sequestration. But I think what was most impressive was the fact that she came up with a figure of 0.04%. So even I retain that. So congratulations.
Okay, our Famelab Mauritius 2017 champion, Roshni Rajkumar. And there's more. There's a trophy and an unfeasibly large cheque. In 2 senses of the word. Okay, for photos. Marvellous. So congratulations, if I can borrow the microphone back off you. It is only fitting, hang on, with that spare hand you don't have, a little moment of reaction here, a word for your fans.
This is absolutely incredible. I want to thank you all, the audience, for voting for me, first of all, and the judges. This has been incredible as an experience. And everyone you see here have been wonderful people, very, very supportive. And I want like a round of applause for everyone here, because the journey has been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. I really, really want to thank British Council, in person Krish and Hafiza, for whatever they have done for us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Woo! Funny, Roshni should mention British Council, because there are lots and lots of people to thank, and lots of people I'd like to thank, but rather than me thanking all of them, I'm going to thank just one of them and let him do the rest of the thanks, and that is Tris Bartlett from British Council. You might want that elusive microphone again, Tris.
Thank you very much, everyone. What has made today obviously has been the participants, and they've been brilliant. We didn't know how today was going to go, but you all performed beautifully. You all nailed it. So we really appreciate that, because without you there was no show. So the main thanks obviously goes to you. Quentin has done a lot of thanking already, and I don't want to to spend too much time repeating what he's already said. I'd like to thank our guest of honour, the Honourable Minister Lila Devi-Ducan. I'd like to thank her team. A lot of senior directors from the Ministry of Education have really helped us out in this. So Maya Sinaran, Dan Ransinghani, thank you very much for everything you've done. Two of the directors who've not here, who've helped us enormously, Kelvin Ningwang Hing and Kiran Bujan, have also been really instrumental in getting Famelab off the ground, so thank you to them. Obviously, none of this would have happened without our sponsor, so I do want to shout it again. A big thank you to Terry, which was great, and Grev, thank you very much. Great talk. I now understand what you do. With all of what we've seen today, I think it's been an amazing production. And behind that, there's been an invisible man who I think is probably still up there in a box somewhere, and he's probably going to shut down the microphone on me now. But I really do want to thank Silvano De Gennaro, who put in an enormous amount of work behind the scenes to make this happen. Together with his wife, Michelle, who was the one who made sure the sound went through very smoothly. So thank you very much. And both of those people are at the forefront of the Café Scientifique, one of our partners in this program. And I want to also thank Nitin Raghunath, who has come with us on this journey right from the very beginning, and has done an awful lot to energize, to motivate people, to make people aware of Famelab and get us involved. So thank you very much, Nitin, as well. Very, very quickly, another key partner, Rajiv Gandhi Science Centre. They have done, Dr. Aman Malu and your team, you've done a fantastic job. You've been so generous to us. We've come with all sorts of unreasonable demands at all sorts of weird hours. This place shouldn't even be open today. Your security team are busy sort of mutinying outside because they're not paid to be here. So thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. Other partners who've been involved, Roshan Ramasir has been mentioned. You've been very helpful too. Thank you very much. Our partners at University of Middlesex, École Centrale de Nantes, others in the University of Mauritius as well. We've drawn most of our participants from your grouping, and we thank you for that, and we look forward to this continuing into the next year. The reason Famelab is happening, and I've been saying this all the way through, is because I was lucky enough to accompany the president to the Famelab final in South Africa last year. And on the way back, she said, well, it's good that you're going to do it here this year, isn't it? So I'm very, very pleased you did. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now I'd just like to thank my team, Hafiza, Shirley, Susie, Bonita, Zinat. Thank you. Zina, you didn't vote for yourself in the audience vote, did you? Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate the great job you've done. And thank you, everyone, for your great performances.
Thank you, Tris. We are done. I know next year is the 50th anniversary, so rather than saying goodbye, I'd really like to come for that. So I will say adieu, à la prochaine, and can we one more time thank all 11 of our Famelab finalists and our winner, Roshni Rajkumar. That is it. If the security staff are not mutinying too much, you will be allowed to leave the building. Thank you.